Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. When I was younger, we used to go to my Uncle Rob's house for Thanksgiving. We lived about 30 minutes away, and while I'm not sure exactly what year this was, I was maybe 12 or 13. I remember my brother, sister, and parents left our house on Thanksgiving morning to head to my uncle's. The roads were quiet for the first part of the drive, and everything seemed fine. About halfway there, though, my dad mentioned something about the car behind us. He said, "Why is this guy following me?" At that point, we all turned around to look. There was a smaller, silver SUV behind us. Up to that point, we had made maybe 3 or 4 turns, and apparently, the SUV had been following us since almost right after we left the house. I hadn't even noticed it, and none of us had an answer for why it was there. I thought maybe it was just a coincidence. The car wasn't right up on our bumper, but it stayed back, keeping a consistent distance. We couldn't really tell who was driving either, because they weren't close enough. We kept heading toward my uncle's, who lived in a quiet neighborhood where the houses were pretty spread out. I figured there was no way this car would keep following us there. But as we continued, the car stayed behind us, even through more turns. Soon, we got into the city where my Uncle Rob lived, and the car was still there. At this point, we thought maybe it was another relative also going to Uncle Rob's. We didn't know what all of our family members drove, so it was possible. Still, we were all feeling a little suspicious. When we finally got to my uncle's street, we slowed down. The car was still behind us, keeping its distance. As we pulled into my Uncle Rob's driveway, my dad was thinking about driving past and trying to lose the car, but we ended up just pulling in. The car behind us didn't follow, it just kept going down the street, which was a relief. Once we were inside my uncle's house, we settled in. He had a big house and yard, so most of our family gatherings were held there. The living room, where some of us were watching football, didn't have a great view of the street, but you could see it a little bit from where I was sitting by the window. As I sat watching TV, I would occasionally glance out the window. After a while, I noticed the same silver SUV drive by, going the opposite way and moving very slowly. We all just chalked it up to coincidence. Maybe it was someone who lived nearby or was visiting one of my uncle's neighbors. I thought it was a little odd, but didn't make a big deal out of it. About 5 minutes later, I saw the car again, coming back from the direction it had gone. This time, it was moving extremely slow, then it came to a stop just past my uncle's driveway. The car sat there for maybe 30 seconds, then slowly drove off again. I found this really strange, but nobody else noticed it. I got up and found my dad, telling him about what I saw. He found it interesting, but since the car had driven away again, there wasn't much we could do. I went back to the living room, and we continued watching football. I got distracted talking to other people, and soon it was time for Thanksgiving dinner. After dinner, we went back to the living room to watch more football. By now, the sun had set, and I was sitting in the same chair by the window. At one point, I thought I saw something outside. It was dark, and there weren't many lights outside, but I was sure I saw a man. He had moved behind a tree in my uncle's yard. I kept watching, and a few seconds later, the man ran out from behind the tree and went behind a bush, about 20 feet away. I stood up and asked my cousin next to me if he had seen that, but he had no idea what I was talking about. I started explaining what I had just seen, and right at that moment, we heard someone try to open the back door of the house. The door was located between the living room and the kitchen. Thankfully, the door was locked. One of my uncles sitting in the living room asked, "Did somebody go outside?" But no one had. We all looked at each other, confused. One of my other uncles got up and went to the door. He looked out and said he saw a man running away. He opened the door and started to go outside. I quickly looked out the window again and saw the man running behind another tree, farther away this time. Now, everyone in the room was standing, looking out windows, and talking about what was happening. Then, I saw the silver SUV again. It quickly drove away down the street. A few of us, including myself, went outside, despite the cold, and searched around the property. But the man was gone. For the rest of the night, we didn't see him or the car again. We left my uncle's house later that evening and weren't followed home. To this day, I still wonder who that man was, why he followed us, and why he was prowling around my uncle's yard. My name is Rachel, and this story happened just last year when we were hosting Thanksgiving at our house. I live in a 2-story home with my husband, and we were going to have about 20 people over. We were mostly prepared for the guests, having done the shopping for food earlier in the week and cleaning the house. People were supposed to start arriving around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. At about 11 a.m., we realized we didn't have enough drinks. With most stores closed for Thanksgiving, we weren't sure what to do at first. However, there's a chain of gas stations that's open 24/7 and offers a good variety of things, so we figured we could grab the drinks there. I sent my husband to go get them while I stayed behind to prepare some food. A few minutes after he left, I had a moment to head down to the basement to grab extra folding chairs we'd need for dinner. As I was downstairs, trying to see how many chairs I could carry at once, I suddenly heard the front door open and close. My husband couldn't have come back that fast, and if it were him, I expected him to say something. I assumed maybe one of our guests had arrived early, but they weren't supposed to show up for another 2 hours. With a chair in each hand, I started to walk up the basement stairs. As I was halfway up the staircase, I heard footsteps heading upstairs to the 2nd floor. Whoever had entered hadn't said a word. I felt a sudden chill. If this was one of our guests, they wouldn't just walk upstairs without saying anything. I had a really bad feeling. I quickly pulled out my phone and texted my husband, asking if he had just come back to the house. He responded almost instantly, telling me he had just arrived at the gas station. My bad feeling worsened. Someone was inside our house, and they were upstairs. My husband told me he was on his way back, which made me feel slightly better, but I knew it would still take a few minutes. There was still a slim chance that it could be a family member or maybe a neighbor. We were friendly with our next-door neighbors, and they had come over a few times unannounced, but they would never just barge in without knocking or saying something. Quietly, I walked upstairs from the basement and cracked open the door at the top of the stairs. I stepped into the hallway, and just then, I heard someone coming down the stairs from the 2nd floor. They would be in my line of sight any second. Panic surged through me. I didn't want whoever it was to see me, so I quickly turned and ran back down to the basement. I hurried into the bathroom off my husband's man cave and locked the door behind me. Minutes passed in silence. From inside the bathroom, I couldn't hear what was happening upstairs, and my mind raced as panic started to settle in. Then, all of a sudden, I heard footsteps coming down the basement stairs. I knew my husband wasn't home yet. I moved as far back into the bathroom as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. The footsteps drew closer, and then they stopped right outside the bathroom door. The handle jiggled as someone tried to open it. When the door didn't budge, there was a light knock. I froze, not moving, and whoever was on the other side remained silent. Several seconds passed, and then my phone vibrated. It was my husband letting me know he was back. I quickly texted him that someone was in the basement, and then I dialed 911. As I was talking to the 911 operator, I heard my husband's voice from the top of the basement stairs. He shouted, asking who was down there. The person outside the bathroom door suddenly bolted in the opposite direction. At that point, I didn't hesitate. I flung open the bathroom door and sprinted up the stairs as fast as I could. It was probably the fastest I've ever run in my life. When I reached the top, I found my husband, and I told him I had already called the police. We quickly left the house and waited in his truck in the driveway. About 10 minutes later, the police arrived. After searching the house, they found a man hiding behind the basement couch. When they escorted him out, he was one of the creepiest people I had ever seen. I had no idea who he was and didn't recognize him at all, but we were just relieved that he had been caught. I'm still not sure why he was there or if he thought no one was home when he entered, but that was definitely one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.